It's time for the 32081 Scoreboard Show. Let's recap the latest weekly scores and highlights from around the county.
And thank you for listening to the 32081 Scoreboard Show. I'm the Todd, and we are going to kick it off this week with Cuda Mike from the Beachside Barracudas. Cuda Mike, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I know you probably woke up feeling good. You're probably a little surprised. I was a little surprised by the score. I thought you guys were going to maybe take Menendez a little bit, little worse than the score was. But 20-14 win, what you got to get us caught up on?
Yeah, it was exciting. The first two drives, we went down and scored right away, made it 14-0. And then the second quarter, we kind of fell apart there for a little bit. We had 4 personal fouls, led into 2 touchdowns for Pedro, and was tied up at halftime, 14-14. Second half, we were driving. We had a lot of drop balls. But Pedro is a good team. They played fundamentally sound. The quarterback case was going off yesterday. He did really, really well. And then we had 2 field goals late in the game to win the game.
Yeah, Menendez has seemed to get better and better every year, especially since they had the coaching change. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, they've just been playing sound football and increasingly getting better and tougher.
Yes. I watched them play their spring game, and they had some challenges, and their challenges have improved in the last 6 months. They're disciplined on defense. They're fast at the backfield. So I was really impressed with Pedro this week.
Let me ask you this, Mike. We're going to talk to JJ a little bit later about the Ponte Vedra game. They went up to Baker County. I've got to ask you, you guys are going to host Ponte Vedra this week, and the one thing that I've noticed is that Ponte Vedra has gone to the air a lot. They won last night on the air. They only had 1 rushing yard against Baker County. I think Nice held them to negative rushing yards, and they had 68 against Bartram. How do you see your defense going up against Ponte Vedra's offense, especially if they have to fall back on the pass play again with Cole Rosendahl?
We should be okay. Beachside has improved defensively throughout the season. We got some starters back. Dom will hopefully be back next week from shoulder surgery. We'll fill the middle. But our defense is getting better and better each week, shutting down the pass.
Now, Mike, let me ask you about this. The Cudas play at the Reef, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So I think you might need to talk to someone, because I had a brilliant idea before I got on with you that I think maybe as people walk in, I know you guys had the mascot, the Barracuda and stuff, but I think maybe you need like a Scuba Steve sitting there at the Reef or something like that, and full scuba gear and everything, mask. I mean, you think that would take off okay over there?
It might. You never know with these kids from St. Johns County, But that's a good idea.
Have Scuba Steve.
That'd be funny. Yeah. Student body was rowdy last week. We played Inglewood, so hopefully they'll bring their energy, and we'll have a big crowd again next week. It's going to be a good rival game.
That'd be awesome. And it's going to be at 7 o'clock at Beachside High School at the Reef. We don't know if Scuba Steve will be there or not, but it should be a great game as they host Ponte Vedra. So thanks again, Cuda Mike.
Yep. Thank you, Todd, and have a great weekend.
And now we're going to go check in with Mike the Knight as the Creekside Knights were taking on Spruce Creek. Mike, you were looking forward to this one. You probably weren't that happy with the outcome, but can you give us a little bit of a rundown on the Knights versus Spruce Creek game?
Yeah, it was a tough night, obviously, for our third loss. But I think this was the first game of the year, Todd, where there was some noticeable positive improvements on both sides of the ball. Credit to Spruce Creek, man. That's one heck of a football team. Last week they went up to Ohio and beat one of the top, I think the 5th ranked team in Ohio last week. So keep an eye on
a road trip.
Right. Yeah, I didn't realize, like a lot of public schools do that. But yeah, they were impressive. They had some electrifying athletes, some amazing sides on both the defensive and offensive lines. So I know we had the loss, but Coach Mack's never going to be happy with a loss. But I know there's some positive things that came out of that game as we go into Bartram this week.
And speaking of that, you led me perfectly into what I wanted to ask you about with going into Bartram, because we've always been saying, how the team started off 0-3, right, last season, and now you look at, you had Nice, you had Spruce Creek, and then before that, you opened up with a loss against Mandarin, but now all of a sudden you're going into Bartram Trail, and this could be the turnaround of things, because if you win at Bartram Trail, you have Winter Park and Sandalwood before you get into Fleming Island. So the schedule kind of takes a little bit of a favorable turn for you here.
Yeah,
In my opinion, I'm not going to put you out there when Bartram Trail's around the corner. I'm not going to do that. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I would challenge you to find, 3 tougher starting opponents in the area. I mean, going into the week, I think, even going back to our kickoff classic against Bowles, Bowles, Mandarin, and Nice all ranked in the top 10 locally. And then Spruce Creek, if they were a Jacksonville school, I'm 100% confident that they would be ranked in the top 10 here locally. So, it's you don't want to blame schedule. Obviously, we had opportunities to take advantage and win some of those games and didn't. But similar to last year, we started off 0-3, playing the exact same schedule, and then had a heck of a barn burner game against Bartram, where we were able to pull off the victory there. So hopefully that holds true.
And that was the turning point, right? That was the turning point.
It was the turning point. I think we won 3 in a row. At that point. Now, that Bartram game last year, if I recall correctly, the stats were mind-numbing. I think there was over 1,000 yards
insane.
or 1,100. Yeah, 1,100 yards of total offense, 100 points or so scored in the game. I don't think we're going to see that this year. I think it's going to be more of a defensive battle. But, like I said, I think there's a lot of positive things, as many as you can take from a loss, going into this week, getting ready for the big rivalry game against Bartram. So I'm sure the guys will be fired up for that.
The last thing I have for you real quick is we talked early on about the age, the young, players that were being asked to step up and play right now. So my question to you is, like you said, you want to take positives away from the losses. What have you seen from these young players, whether it's on defense or offense, and how they've, kind of handled the adversity of these first 3 games? And then also, do you think, like you said about the schedule, it's preparing them better for this middle stretch of the schedule?
Well, I think yes to both. So first question, there's guys on both sides of the ball, young guys that have now really started to kind of separate themselves. Keller being one of the linebackers on defense that had a phenomenal game last night. And then, Timmy Goodrich at wide receiver on offense had a couple of big plays, and I think he's getting more comfortable in a starting role as a sophomore. So again, I think those are positives. I just think that, there's a lot of good things that to take away from last night and build momentum wise to get ready for this week.
Well, Mike the Knight, thanks as always. And I wish you and the Knights the best of luck against Bartram Trail this Friday night at 7:00.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, now shifting gears, we're going to shift on over to Josham James, who pulled double duty with me this weekend, but we are going to start out by talking about the Ponte Vedra Baker County game. Ponte Vedra went up there, and JJ, they win 35-10, and we're going to have Cole Rosendahl in a little bit here, but they did it in the air.
Yeah, the Sharks have definitely found their groove, and Rosendahl and Berquist hooked up together for 3 touchdowns in the first half, and all 28 points in the first half, by the way, came in the second quarter, and it was great to see.
So how do you think the defense is faring now? I know Talon went out. We saw that happen at Nice. They kind of took a step back in that second quarter when Nice pulled away, and then they rebounded in the third and fourth quarter. But are they starting to find a little bit of a comfort zone after losing their leader and hopefully getting them back later in the season?
They absolutely are. And so the 10 points, 7 of those points were in the last 2 minutes when Ponte Vedra took the foot off the gas and pulled all their starters. And so they only gave up 3 points all night if you're looking from the starting perspective. And so they're stopping the run. Their pass defense is stepping up and making it difficult on the opponents. And it's really nice to see all cylinders hitting at the same time. And ever since the first game against Nice, unfortunately didn't start off as exactly as they wanted, but man, oh man, have they turned it around. Coaching has stepped up, players have stepped up, and it's good to see the team unity and them, taking it to the next level here.
The last thing I have for you, JJ, is this before we bring Cole on here, because I'm about to ask him this as well. But it seems like Ponte Vedra is using the old adage, take what they give us, right? Because you look at their rushing yardage against Nice, they were negative yards. And then I think they had 1 against Bartram and then 68 against Baker County, while Cole has put up something like 982 yards passing in the air. And I'm getting ready to ask him this, but it almost seems like, you hear so many people say, hey, let's use the run to establish the pass. And it's the complete opposite. And it seems like this coaching staff is saying, hey, let's use what they're giving us. And then they're slowly picking up that running game to complement the passing game.
Exactly. And here's something that I'm not sure that Cole knows. I don't know if you know this, but that is 3 straight 300-yard games that he's started the season off in, and I think that's a Ponte Vedra record. I don't think that's been done before, and so that's that's something I think that the coaching staff has realized and has focused in on is, hey, we have a leader here that's leading this team, and maybe the running game isn't performing as well as from a stat line perspective, but I mean, if they're able to continue to see open holes and have a high-flying offense with this passing game, I mean, there might be a lot of records broken this year.
I agree, and I think it's going to be an interesting game when they travel over to the Reef to play Beachside. Beachside's starting to click a little bit after an initial loss, and they just beat Menendez. So I think that's going to be a good game. It'll be away from the Tanks, so I think it'll be good to see how this team rebounds. And let's go ahead and bring on Cole, and then what we'll do is after we speak to Cole, we'll do Making the Call with Abigail, and you and I will come back and talk a little Nice, Tallahassee, Lincoln. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me, Todd.
And now joining us on the show, the quarterback from Ponte Vedra, Cole Rosendahl. Cole, thanks for coming on the show and spending a few minutes with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Cole, what would you have thought when I saw you back in Davenport over the summer at a camp? What would you have thought if I walked up to you and said, hey, Cole, after game 3, you're going to have thrown for 982 yards. What would you have thought, or what would you have said to me at that point?
I wouldn't have said that you're crazy, because I really thought that our team going into this year really just had a shot to just air the ball out. We have so many guys on the outside, like Jack, Davitt, Tucker, Angelo, and our up front just gives me all the time I need to really do it.
I mean, it's insane, though.
982 is a lot. Yeah, 982 is a lot.
I looked at that and I was like, dadgum, because I know you guys have been trying to get the rush on there, and that's what I wanted to ask you about, and this is where that question was leading. You guys have been trying to get the rush. I know you went up against a tough Nice defense in the first game where they held to negative yardage. Then you were able, I think, 1 yard, I think, against Bartram, but then you're able to get 68. So it seems like it's going in the right direction. But really, what has been so effective with the passing game? Because, again, 982 is impressive. You've been spreading the ball around. And it seems like you've also been doing a mixture of both staying in the pocket and being able to get outside the pocket.
I feel like we've just really been able to find the creases in defense with our passing game. And as we've been doing that more and more, we've just been able to open up the run game a little bit more. Like in that first game, I feel like we just tried to go straight into the run, and they were ready for it. But as soon as we started opening it up, we started getting little creases. And same thing with Bartram. We started passing first, and as soon as that, it opened up for our running back Winkles to get a good 60-yard touchdown in that game. And last game, we were just able to spread them out and run it right down the middle.
So it really seems like the passing game is opening up the running game, whereas normally you hear about the running game opening up the passing game.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of the reverse for us.
A little bit of the reverse. Let me ask you also about the mentality of this team right now, because, of course, last year you kind of started off the same way. What is the mentality of the team right now? As you lost against Nice, but you've been picking up steam now. You got 2 wins. So is it just the same as last year, where you guys take it week by week? Are the guys focused? How's the team doing overall?
That week 1 loss, really, we were all looking forward to go into there and just get that first win to start us off right. Even though we didn't, it really didn't change our end mind goal. We just really want to go week by week, like you said, and just keep winning games, put it all together one by one, and work our way into districts, work our way into regionals, and hopefully even into the state Final Four.
Now, the last question I want to ask you is, I know as a quarterback, you always give praise to your offensive line, but let me ask you, being on the offensive side, what can you say about the defense and how the Sharks have been playing on that side of the ball?
Our defense has been absolutely stellar. After that first half of the first game, they've really just stepped it up. They've allowed us to get short field position, making it a lot easier on the offense. I can just say I can be thankful for them because they're making my job a lot easier too.
Well, Cole, I appreciate you taking some time out to meet with us today and talk about the Sharks and how you're doing. Wish you the best of luck, and I'm probably going to put my money on the fact that I think you're probably going to pass 1,000 yards this week.
Yes, sir. I hopefully that happens.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Cole. I appreciate it, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you so much for having me on here.
Get ready to huddle up. It's time for Making the Call with Abigail on the Scoreboard Show.
Let's be great. Let's be great.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Let's kick it off.
Okay, parents, fans, and players, listen up. This week's edition of Making the Call with Abigail is going to be one of the penalties I hear people get wrong, which is pass interference. So, to discuss this, Rob Farley from the North Florida Officials Association is here to help us understand pass interference at the high school level. How are you today, Rob?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Rob, I think this is the most confusing penalty for fans to comprehend because of the difference between high school, college, and pros. On Friday nights, I sometimes hear people yell, "That wasn't catchable," which doesn't apply to the high school level. Can you please explain pass interference from a Friday night perspective?
I'd be happy to. So you talked about uncatchable. So let's start there. In the high school rule book, so most states around the country use the NFHS rule book, National Federation of High Schools, which is a different rule book from the NCAA rule book that is used on Saturdays and the NFL rule book that's used on Sundays and various other rules books like the XFL, USFL. Every league has their own rule book. So the rules are different, and that does cause some confusion with the fans. So one good example that you just touched on is uncatchable. There is no such thing as uncatchable in high school. That is not a high school rule. In theory, the pass could be 40 yards vertically above the head of a receiver, and if that receiver's interfered with, that could be a pass interference call. Now, do we want to make that call? A couple of weeks ago, you asked me about USA philosophy, and we talked about that being unsportsmanlike, safety, and affecting the play. So I would go back to that philosophy in that scenario and say that pass 40 yards over the head of that receiver, that's not affecting the play. That's not a call I want made. But in the passes where there's kind of a gray area, where there's a debate whether it's catchable or not, since we don't have uncatchable in high school, we're going to err on the side of it's catchable. We're always going to deem that to be catchable if there's any question whatsoever. Therefore, if there's any interference, that is going to be a flag that comes out. There's various types of pass interferences, and I think that's one thing that people don't really understand. And I won't go through all of them. We could certainly dive deeper into this on a later call if we'd like to. But there's arm bars, there's hold, there's different categories there. And the other thing that I think people don't really truly understand a lot is that pass interference does not occur below the waist. A lot of times we'll see a receiver and defender hit the turf, and the crowd goes crazy wanting a pass interference call, and their feet just got tangled up. If their feet get tangled up and they inadvertently trip each other, or one trips the other, and they go down, that is not pass interference. Pass interference is only intentional action above the waist. If there's an intentional trip with the leg, that would be a different foul. That would be a tripping foul. But pass interference actually does not occur below the waist. And the other thing that people don't understand with pass interference is that the offensive player does not have a right to the ball. The ball in the air, the offensive player and the defensive player have equal right to go get that ball. A lot of times, the pass interference call that we'll see is an offensive pass interference when the defender gets inside coverage and the offensive player, the wide receiver, tries to go over top of the defensive player to get to the ball. That would be an offensive pass interference called a playing through. That offensive player does not have more right to the ball than the defensive player. So that ball is in the air. It's a 50-50 ball each and every time. Each player has an equal right to go get that ball.
Thank you so much, Rob. And to all you fans, now you should understand pass interference on Friday nights. If you have a rule you would like explained, please feel free to leave a comment. Thank you for listening to Making the Call with Abigail, and next week we will talk about free kicks versus scrimmage kicks.
All right, as always, that was a great Making the Call with Abigail and Rob. Thank you for them for doing that for us, and can't wait to hear next week. So, JJ, you're back with me now, and I know with Ponte Vedra up in Baker County, you came over and visited me, and we watched the Nice-Tallahassee-Lincoln game. This ended up being a high-scoring game, which I was kind of shocked a little bit by the score differential with Tallahassee-Lincoln coming in with the big wins they had underneath their belt. But the one thing I want to talk to you about is we talked last week with Mike the Knight about the defense. Again, the defense was relentless. They've really gotten their groove. To hold Tallahassee-Lincoln and Jacobs, the quarterback, who's fast as anything, they held that team to 10 points, is amazing. But there's two things also that I'd like to talk to you about and get your opinion on. One, Ty Ford, the transfer from Arizona, he moved out here with his family, and he has just lit it up on special teams. I mean, when you look at the Panthers starting yardage lines, I mean, I don't remember, unless it goes into the end zone, and if Ty gets his hands on it, it's either going to be a touchdown or you're looking at starting somewhere between the 35 and 50, and that's just a huge benefit for a Nice offense.
Yeah, I mean, that speed and he's electric, and that's one thing. I mean, you know, Nice, you're getting good defense this season. I mean, you have a lot of leaders and senior leadership on that team that is putting that offense in a great position. But you always don't ever forget, special teams and defense go together. And with his electric speed and his playmaking ability, and I believe he also had quite a good game on the running side and helped out there as well. But let me tell you, special teams and defense is putting that offense in a really good position.
You know, let me also ask you this, because I know there was one in particular where you and I just didn't say anything. We kind of looked at each other, but you hear about running backs. Like Enrique a couple weeks ago, he was talking about his offensive line. One thing also, you talk about his speed, but Ty's ability to kind of pause and allow the blocking. I mean, like I said, the rushers always talk about the offensive line or, the passing with the offensive line, the quarterback, but he actually has a great special teams in front of him that he's able to be patient enough, look at those blocks, find those openings, and then just like you said, use his speed and explode right through them.
Yeah, and then one thing I did notice is that, there's a couple of sophomores on that offensive line that really opened up a lot of holes. And this one sophomore kid, Powell, I believe he's your left guard. And let me tell you something. I started keying in on him, and he was blowing the defensive lineman out, creating big holes in pass protection. He was doing well. And so this young kid, Powell, watch out for him. You're going to have him for another, 2 years after this season, and a lot of good things on that offensive line for you guys.
Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about, too, is we talked about defense, we talked about special teams, is talk about this receiving core, because, we had Vernon Stevens and Braden Felder coming back. They had experience playing at Nice last year. But you're losing people like a Tyler Gazenfari and especially a Maddox Spencer. So when you look at this and you kind of go, okay, we got two coming back. How are we going to fill this? Chase Pfeiffer's, growing up a little bit. So we're going to see how he's doing at tight end. One thing I got to say is one thing against Ponte Vedra, they were extremely well in the bubble screen as far as their blocking. And Nate Sievert's in that group too, extremely doing well in blocking. But then against Tallahassee-Lincoln, the one thing that amazed me was, first of all, Chase Pfeiffer, they need to come up with a stat that's called TINT, and that is take away interceptions. Because I think he's had 2 or 3 where he's gone up and the defenders actually had the ball in his hands, and he just rips it out of their hands. And against Lincoln, he had one done for a touchdown. And then Braden Felder, in my mind, has really filled that slot with that Maddox left, where he's just, he's electric. He is all over the place, his speed, he's running good routes. And then with Tyler Gazenfari leaving, you kind of that little slot receiver, the slant receiver that was getting that 8, 9, 10 yards for you when it was open. That's kind of Vernon Stevens right now. This receiving core, I think, is a lot better than what people thought they were going to be. And they definitely had the potential. They're showing it right now. And it goes from route running, blocking, and great hands.
Yeah, and so and that's the other thing that I really keyed in on was the receiving core. And I realized, look, there were a lot of 50-50 balls that were put up. And for only one interception was had, where I think I counted at least 3 opportunities for the defense to turn Nice over.
Well, like I said, that one that Chase had for a touchdown, right? I think that's one of the ones you're referring to, the one that Chase had.
That's right.
He just ripped it out of his hands.
Yeah, he gets up there, kind of like a post move on the basketball courts
Yeah,
and
that's
just
a good way to put it.
jump people and get that rebound. And then the other one where I as soon as it was as soon as the quarterback let it go, it was to Felder, and thank goodness for Nice, the DB had absolutely no clue where the ball was. It was a little underthrown, but great adjustment by Felder, and that ended up being a touchdown. And so out of the three or four balls that were 50-50 at best, I mean, Nice came away with a couple of touchdowns, one interception, and one incompletion.
And I know exactly the one you're talking about because you looked at me and you go, what an adjustment by Felder. You said that to me when that happened. But the other thing, too, is the physicality because, like I said, I mentioned the blocking, which Nate Seaver's done a great job, especially at Ponte Vedra on the bubble screens. But he caught that one on the 5, and he just was determined to get in the end zone. So, again, the receiving core has really stepped up for this team, and they're just electric right now.
They are, and it's fun to watch. And so I can't wait to see how this continues to develop all season for Nice. The receiving core is stepping up. The offensive line is looking really good. And, of course, you have that defense that seems to not allow others to score, and that special teams is really picking up. And then the kicker and punter, by the way, on special teams, Arik's his first name. I can't remember, and you'd have to fill in his last name
Davis
for
Bear.
me. But
Arik Davis
there
Bear.
you go. There was a one play on a punt return, I believe, where if he wasn't there, and he absolutely brought out the
I know exactly what's funny.
Boom.
That was a pancake, and he just stood there like.
It was unbelievable. Yep. And so, anyway, it was fun to watch. And I think Nice is hitting on all cylinders right now. And just as you said, that offensive line, the wide receiver crew is just doing everything that they need to do to win games. And that defense is just tiring out the offense that they play and puts their offense in great positions. And Nice has an excellent team this year.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be an exciting thing to watch. They beat Lincoln 47-10. They traveled to Fletcher. Fletcher's, I'm not going to put anything past it. This is Battle of the Beach right here. And they got a big one with St. Augustine at Nice. So, with St. Augustine coming off that big one with Bowles. So, listen, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great rest of the season, especially as we get into district play. JJ, I really appreciate you pulling double duty for me here. It was a great time to watch a game with you, and can't wait to do it again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Todd.
And now we take a look at the Turcoy Toros, who were hoping to replicate the success of their JV teams on Thursday night, where both JV teams took down Kenny decisively. So we're going to go on over to Billy the Bull and check out how the Toros fared against the Kenny Crusaders. How you doing, Billy?
I was better last Saturday, Todd.
I thought you were going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you one thing. The Bishop Kenny, they got that win last week. I was glad that they got it because I didn't want them coming in off a loss. But I tell you one thing, Bishop Kenny's facilities, campus, it's one of the best. You can't get much of a venue to look out at from a football standpoint on Friday nights. So it was definitely fun there, but it didn't go the way that we wanted for sure. A lot of it was the Toros versus the Toros. Penalties, turnovers in the first half. And then we had a big loss in the first half with Lucas Whitworth, our quarterback, going down with a wrist injury. We don't know the extent of that. We'll know more today after a few tests are done, but we're hoping that he's going to be better and back soon.
So, Billy, let me ask you something about this. The district is tough. There's no doubt about it with Buholtz, Nice, Bartram Trail, yourselves and everything. And, I've got a chance to go watch the games on Thursday night with JV and watch Coach Kevin and his staff coach these kids. And let me ask you this. I know it's a tough loss. Any loss is tough, but as a fan, as someone that's covering the Tours as a parent, and you see kind of this loss and this coaching staff, could this actually turn into a positive thing for them to kind of learn from this against a tough Kenny Crusaders team and then turn around this week and host Clay, who's 0-3, and possibly try to make those changes and not beat themselves with this coaching staff?
I do. I mean, the fight and the effort was there throughout the night. We put on 14 points in the second half. When it comes to Coach Kevin Dolan and him being around all three of the programs, our JV, two of our JV programs and our varsity program, and I come to the practice, he is hands-on, very detailed, the coaching. He's meticulous with each phase of it, from the special teams to the offense to the defense. And when you watch him coach and motivate these kids and correct the mistakes and use their strengths, this is what you want in a head coach that's involved, that lets the the staff do their thing, and then they get together and they figure out the best things to do. And they're going to have to do that this week. If the quarterback can't go, Lucas Whitworth, this week, he's going to really have to put it together and get these kids motivated and coach them up for Friday versus Clay, because this is one coming in at home, and this is one we want to bounce back with.
Now, the other thing, too, before I let you go, when we look at the Toros hosting Clay this Friday night, I got to go out and meet you and talk to you on Thursday with the JV games and stuff, and I kind of looked around and went, this is the atmosphere for 2 JV games? I mean, it was impressive. I mean, the fans showed up. I mean, they were loud, engaged. I can only imagine what a Friday night's like. Hopefully I'll get to make it out there for one, but I think it's going to be pretty exciting out there this Friday night.
I hope you get to make it out, too, at some point, because it is electric out there in Tukoi over in World Golf Village on Friday nights. The students come out. The student section is fantastic. The parents, people that don't even have association with it, they just love Friday Night Lights. It's a great venue to come to and watch and take the family and then enjoy Toros wins, because that's what we're planning on doing on this Friday versus Clay.
All right, Billy the Bull reporting to us from Kenny on the Tukoi Toros loss, unfortunately, but they will be hosting Clay, and I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be a bounce-back game for them, so thanks for the coverage, Billy.
Yep, appreciate it, Todd.
And to get you up to speed on a couple of other scores, St. Augustine over Bulls in a thriller, 40-35, as the Jackets will meet the Panthers in a couple weeks, and Bartram falls to Ware County, 14-21 to drop to 0-3 on the season. Coming up this Friday night, and please note, all kickoffs are not at 7 o'clock, with some kicking off at 6:30. St. Augustine travels to Riverside for a 6:30 kickoff. Bartram will travel to the Creekside Castle for a 7 o'clock kickoff, and both teams are looking for their first win of the season. Nice travels to Fletcher in a battle of 2 3-0 teams, with this one kicking off at 6:30. The Sharks will swim over to the Reef and take on the Beachside Barracudas at 7 o'clock, and Tukoi will host Clay for a 7 o'clock kickoff as well. For Cuda Mike, Jossam James, Mike the Knight, and Billy the Bull, and special thanks to Abigail and Rob for this week's rule explanation, I'm the Todd, and thank you for listening to the 32081.
Thank you for listening to the 32081. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Please don't forget to subscribe to the show so you can join us for the next episode.
I never miss an episode. It's the best.
Until next time, take care.